Hey guys, welcome back to another Dylan Stone radio show. This, of course, is the first one of 2020. It's taken me until August to get it going, but as you know, with everything going on these days, with COVID and all that shit happening, it's been a bit of a rough ride for all of us. But we do the best we can. I had another radio show all set. In fact, I had finished it and I uploaded it to YouTube, and we got flagged. Copyright infringements and all kinds of horse shit going on because of the fact that I was playing copyrighted music, and we don't have the rights to do that, at least not yet. Hopefully at some point we can do that. But at this particular point in time, all the radio shows are going to be musicless. Is that a word? Musicless? Creative English. It'll be musicless. So, sans music, without music, just me talking, showing you pictures and different things of what I'm talking about and that sort of thing. So it's going to be sort of a different concept at this point until maybe later on down the road when we can attack it from a different angle. All right? Other than that, I hope this radio show finds you guys doing well. Hope you're staying healthy. Hope you're social distancing and doing all the things that you need to do to keep yourself healthy. As you know, here in New Brunswick, we're lucky. We've really we've lucked out. We played it well. We did what we needed to do, and we've been one of the safest places basically in North America. And I couldn't have picked a better place to be living, to be honest. It was great. My fellow Montrealers back home, I know you guys haven't been having a shit show dealing with this, and it's awful to see you guys being in that position. You know, Ontario and the rest of Canada, and just take care of yourselves. That's my main thing. Please, safety first, okay? Now, that being said, what I'm going to do today is I want to talk about music styles and some of the musical styles over the course just over 100 years. Okay? In fact, I'm going to start from 1910. Okay, I'm going to talk about all the different musical styles that were there and how they changed and how it all... In fact, you're going to be, when I talk about it, you're going to be seeing here sort of what I'm talking about. You'll see the chart as I go. Okay? So that this way you guys can sort of follow along what I'm talking about. All right? You'll have the chart on this side, and some of the artists that I mention you will see over on this side. So we can sort of get it going. See, now with the way that these things are going with us now and the way we're doing our video stuff, I can expand it a little bit and we can sort of do that. So it's a lot of fun that way. So, all right. So as I said, starting 1910, as you can see there, we're starting in the fourth quarter of 1910. By the fourth quarter, I mean obviously 12 months, right? January, February, first quarter. March, April, May. June, July, August. September, October. No, wait a minute. January, February, March, April. That's the way it is. January, February, March, April. First quarter. May, June, July, August. September, October, November, December. Those are the quarters. Okay? Now, It works out that in the fourth quarter of 1910, the most popular music by basically 30% was opera, as you can see on the chart. That's what everybody was into at the time. Now, it makes me laugh to think, you know, when you look back at 1910, I mean, records, well, they were cylinders at the time. In fact, let me show you what they listened to. This is what they were listening to at the time. Were cylinders. Okay? And it's played on a record player or phonograph, as they called it, that had a crank there. There's a picture of one right there. That's what they did. They had that thing and they cranked it, and they would put this on the thing and it would go and it would play. And it was, obviously it was state of the art at the time. But when you compare it to the way things are now, it did sound pretty shitty. But of course, like I said, state of the art, it was what it was. So, you do what you can do. But that's what they were listening to at the time, was all opera music, and it was the thing. The next one on the list they listened to was marches, folk music, ragtime. Ragtime's not surprise ragtime. That started to really get popular a little bit later on, with all that military gospel ballads, all that kind of thing. So that was what was there. Now, 1912, you still had marches in first place, but opera was coming up. Opera was coming up. Okay, you see now, marches were 23 and change, and operas were 22 and change. So that's the fourth quarter of 1912. So 22, and then folk, and then ragtime, Celtic, music hall music, how it was all. And you can see in this chart how gospel and military are crossing, because gospel was just coming up up that chain to be a little bit more popular than military. So that's how it was working that way. Now, as we continue on, 1913, fourth quarter of 1913, you can see opera still, but folk music is taking over from the marches. So folk music was coming in second place. And of course, marches were in third, ragtime, music hall, gospel as we go down. And polka down at the bottom. I don't know. Polka. Okay. People listening to polka. I don't understand that. But that's what they did. They listened to polka. So go figure. All right. We continue on. 1915, second quarter of 1915. Opera is still in first place. And then folk music is in second place, marches, ragtime, as you can see the way it works. But a new entry into it here at the bottom, as you can see, country music having 5.58%. So country music is starting to come up in 1915, which of course, now when you consider the fact that country music was starting to take that trend, now just remember, okay, coming up in 1928 was the Bristol sessions, okay, Ralph Peer doing, recording the Carter Family and Jimmy Rogers and all. That's coming up in 28. We'll get to that, but I'm just giving you a sort of a heads up here. All right. Now, 1916, not even a year later, well, basically a year, second quarter of 1915 to second quarter of 1916, country's in first place. So people are starting to listen to country music more at that point in time. 23 and change. Then, of course, opera's second, folk, ragtime, marches. You can see all the way that it worked, okay? Now, you go up to 1923, third quarter. What a difference. Look at how much country is compared to everything else on the chart. Like, we're talking close to 60% of the people were listening to country in 1923. So there you go. 28 was when Ralph Peer went and recorded Jimmy Rogers and the rest of them. So they were obviously onto something. They obviously knew this is what was coming up. They had an inkling or a feeling or a whatever, but I'm glad to see country being in that position. But of course, you're going to see country drop as things change and whatever, but we'll get into that too. But you can see how it all went. Now, in 1923, as far as country goes, if you look here, you'll see some of the artists of that particular point in time in 1923. You'll see some of the country artists that were recording at that particular point in time, and some of the sort of the forerunners of what was to come with Jimmy Rogers and Carter Family and Ernest Tubb and all the country people you listen to now or listen to then as opposed to now and stuff. These are some of the forerunners that were there at the time. So keep that in mind as well. All right. Now, 1934, we jump ahead. All of a sudden, jazz is in first place. Now, that was, of course, 34, there was a lot of jazz. Of course, you had a lot of nightclubs playing jazz. You had the speakeasies there. You had, the Cotton Club. You had all these things playing that type of music, and it was quite popular wherever. So jazz was in first place. Of course, country was second, just behind with, less than 1%. Country was still up there. But then you had, if you look at the chart, you can see tango and you can see folk and you can see things like that. So it was the way that it worked. Now, continuing to 1938, you'll notice how jazz has just taken over. Country is like less than half all of a sudden. people have switched their loyalties, and now most of the people are listening to jazz. Some of the best jazz music came out of the 30s. You know, to this day, you go back and you listen to some of that old stuff, it's impossible to replicate that type of, it's wonderful music, and it's great. So jazz was the one. Now, you continue on to 1952. Now, no surprise here, R&B is in first place. Now, R&B was basically the forerunner to rock and roll music. That's sort of what inspired Elvis and the rest of them. You know, 1952, Sam Phillips had Sun Records going, and he was recording a lot of R&B artists in Memphis. You know, from Howlin' Wolf to all the different people that he did at the time, which, of course, sort of brought rock and roll sort of to the, you know, rockabilly, rock and roll, you know, but they were all there. Of course, country was still pretty much tied. I mean, you know, you got like 10% basically. People were sort of tied between R&B and country, which again was good for Sam Phillips. I mean, you know, look at what he had, all the country artists and jazz artists and rock and roll people he had in his stable at that particular point in time. It's right there. Now, you go from 1952 and you go to 55, the second quarter of 1955, country's sort of dropping off. You've got R&B still up front, and country is just, you know, 3 change percent behind, and a chanson. I guess you got some French music coming in there. You got jazz, folk, rockabilly is in the chart now finally, because of course, doesn't make, you know, it makes perfect sense that rockabilly would be in there. You know, ballads, classical, as you can see, it's all there. But if you look at the very bottom of that chart, you see rock and roll coming up in 1955. And it was in 56 where rock and roll went this way. In fact, look, there you go, 1956. First quarter of 1956, less than a year after, you can see rock and roll is taking over first place from R&B. Because, of course, 1956, you know, Elvis was coming out, and you look at all the artists. Well, look at some of the artists here that were coming out in 1956. Just look at that, and it'll give you an idea why rock and roll skyrocketed in that short period of time. Now, again, you go 4 years ahead into 1960, look at the difference there. All of a sudden now soul music is coming through, because a lot of the black artists were getting more airplay. They were, you know, brought to the, I mean, it's all being done. Alan Freed was very instrumental, if you'll pardon the pun, in that happening, because he played a lot of black music on his show, and the audience was humongous. So, you know, from the time that he started doing that in the 50s up to 1960, it's no surprise that soul was doing what it's doing. Of course, rock and roll is still there. Country has gone way down on the chart, as you can see, but, you know, that's okay. Pop, rock, R&B, it's all there. Now, jump ahead 10 years to 1970, third quarter of 1970, and soul music, number 1. Pop rock is there, funk, classic rock. Now see, that kind of made me wonder. Classic rock in 1970. What was classic rock in 1970? The 50s? Because, you know, we hear classic rock today, and people play music from the 90s and the 80s, and they call that classic rock. And I just want to go and I want to slap somebody, because to me that's not classic rock. But, you know, anyway, that's just me. I'm strange that way. So there you go. 1970 soul is in first place. You jump ahead 3 years to 1973. Look what's in first place. Yeah. Good old disco. Yeah, Marky G is doing his little... And so the disco era started in that particular point in time. Now, disco, there's what some of the disco artists at the time coming through were. And you can see where it happened that way. Now, 1977, as you jump ahead, disco's still there. Disco is still maintaining its place at the top. Of course, pop rock, new wave is coming up now, and soul is going down, and funk and classic rock are still there, but you can see the new wave music starting to take shape. Now, 1980, you jump ahead, pop rock in first place, and disco is down into second place. So as you see now, in 80, disco started to wane a little bit. Now, techno pop, I was never a fan, but there it is. New wave is up more now. It's coming. Soul, funk, all the way down. Country is sort of down near the bottom, but it's there. And it sort of makes you wonder where we're headed. But 1987, okay, pop rock is in first place. And you can see it. You guys can see it here. And of course, techno pop and house music. Well, of course, I mean, that doesn't surprise me with all that going on. Hard rock coming up and indie rock coming up on the charts. So that's there. Okay, go ahead to the next one. 89, house music, number one. That's where we started to get into the, I guess, NWA was probably doing their thing at that particular point in time. And we're, the sound out of Compton and all that was probably coming through that point in time. So house and hip hop and whatever. In fact, hip hop should be making an appearance probably on the next one. Go to the next, there you go, 93. You can see hip hop right on the very bottom. See, it's starting to come in now. And of course, it was through the 90s where it really hit its stride. But of course, house music in first place. You got, what's that, down tempo? I have no idea what that is.
Portishead.
Portishead.
Yeah.
I've heard the name, but I never...
That was the blip there.
That was the blip there? Okay. Portishead, okay. All right, next one. And then as we continue, now you see hip hop rap, number one. So you see, didn't take too long, and there you go, you got it. Of course, house music, number two, techno. I hated techno. My God, I used to hate techno. Or I still do. But, alternative rock and electro, and you can see how it all works. And of course, country isn't even in the chart there. So country took a nosedive. Okay, next one, last one, into 2019. So we're close to 2020. Hip hop is still number one. Techno, R&B, punk, alternative rock, but you can see country now is starting to make a comeback. You can see it's on the chart there. So will it continue to go this way? That's a good question, because to me, country now isn't what country was. Of course, you got to understand with country, when country is not what it was because of the fact that you're not dealing with country boys anymore. You're not dealing with people who grew up on farms and picked cotton and lived a tough life and lived off the land and you're talking city boys dressed as country boys now. It's not the same type of music at all. It's a whole different style. I don't know if that's good or bad. It's just not the same. But we grow and we change. That's part of just these charts have told you that, how we grow and we change musically. And I don't know if I'm not a fan in a way, like if I listen to the older country more than the new country, but every so often there will be a new country song that will grab me. It doesn't happen as often as I'd like it to, but it does happen. So, go figure. What are you going to do? But there you go. There's just a little bit of an idea, some of the things for you to think about as to how music has changed from the very beginning of our catalog all the way through. What Latin music? Latin? Yeah. 2019, Latin music in there. That's no surprise either, because a lot of people there's just so many different styles.
That's not in the other charts, is it?
Was in the one before that, I believe. Latin was... No, it wasn't. Latin wasn't there. Nope. So it just made an appearance in 2019. Cool. It wasn't humongous, but it was there. But, a lot of great Latin... Well, go way back to,
The market's there, though.
Oh, there's a market for everything. It's not necessarily, always a huge market, but there's a market for everything. But, Latin music at the time, look at, like Ricky Ricardo, that type of style from the Cubans, all the way through. And you had, a lot of people of that era. What the hell is his name? He was married to Charo. What's his name? It's right on the tip of my tongue. Cugat, Xavier Cugat. He had a lot of Latin music being played. And I mean, that was through the 50s into the 60s. There was a lot of that going on. So, I mean, there was a market for it and it was there, but obviously it wasn't, you know, humongous. But there you go. So there's your musical styles and some of the things that way that made the difference. So, well, I hope you enjoyed spending some time talking about musical styles and just having some fun. Before we go, I want to take this time to just remind you, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Tell us what your favorite musical style is. You know, give us like even your top 3. Tell us what your top 3 musical styles are. See where you fit in the charts. Maybe some of your favorite singers. Let us know who you listen to. If I went through your iPod, who would I hear? Or your iPod or your whatever case may be. If I went through, who would I hear? Let us know down below. Leave a comment, subscribe, click the bell, have some fun, let us know what's going on, because we got lots more of radio shows coming, lots more topics. I'm going to be talking about some of the Christmas music, some of the best of all time. I'm going to do that closer to Christmas. I'm going to be talking about all kinds of interesting things on our radio show. So, hope you guys can stick around, keep coming back, have fun. Don't forget to check out the rest of our radio shows. Check out the Jersey Ham. Check out all the things we got on superlativeradio.com. Check out our YouTube page. Have some fun. Come back. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. Tell your family. Tell everyone. Superlativeradio.com is the place you want to be. We'll see you guys soon. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. That's the way it's supposed to be. See you later.